Welcome, everybody. It's February 22nd, Wednesday. I am John Aravosis. We are just me. I am the Aravosis Report, the daily show where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me get my TikTokers rolling here on my iPad. Oop, hello, TikTok. There we go. And then, as usual, we'll wait a couple minutes for folks to arrive, and then we will get rolling. All right. And do your usual introductions, if you would, while I adjust my camera angle and all that fun stuff. Doom. Woo. All right. Yeah, here's Johnny. Oh, my. Hey, everybody. Hey, TikTokers. As the TikTokers come flowing in. Woo, man. So, as always, I'm going to wait a minute or two for folks to arrive first. Hey, guys. Hey, Big Hawk. Creepy as ever. I decided to bake right before the show. So literally at like 3 minutes to 6, I was pulling this rich Nigella Lawson chocolate cake out of the oven because I just felt like it. So I was a minute late because I was, busy being decadent. So one of the neighbors is pregnant and wants chocolate. So I figured I'd oblige. Hey, Thomas in Glasgow, how are you? Up. Me Trucker 28, glad you made it. Hey guys. Well, as always, like I said, we wait a minute or two just for folks to arrive. So, I've got a whole cake sitting here waiting, guys. So there's more than enough. Hey, Brave. No, it should be good. It's supposed to be a good. I was just saying before that I'm waiting for enough folks to arrive and then we'll start the show. But I was just before the show making a chocolate cake. And Nigella Lawson has a chocolate like fudgy pound cake kind of. We call it pound cake in the US. I'm not sure what you would call it. Actually, what do you guys? I forget what you guys call it in the UK. Loaf cake, you would call it. Loaf cake. Anyway, it's like chocolate gooey mess, which, hello, where are my shoes? Chocolate gooey mess, which for me is like the best thing ever. I love chocolate. So anyway, just finished that for the show. So, all right, I think we got critical mass. I will get going. Welcome, everybody. I am John Aravosis. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Thank you for the rose there, L, on TikTok, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. The way we do the show is I spend about half an hour, sometimes more, sometimes less, telling you guys what the latest news is. I try to go through the news using my 30 years experience in politics and also in journalism. I wrote for The Economist. I've worked in the U.S. Senate. I have a law degree, all sorts of fun stuff, and try to basically pick you guys the stories that I think matter. Thank you, Harold. And give you a little bit of a sense of why I think those stories matter. And then we do question and answer for the second half of the show. On TikTok, you can submit your questions now, really. I mean, you don't have to wait until we get to that period. On TikTok, submit the questions via the Q&A link that's in my profile. For the rest of you, just use the comment box at the bottom. I do this for free. I do it full time. The only support I'm getting is from you guys. Nobody's paying me to do this. I wish the CIA were paying me to do this, but they're not. So if you can, please keep the gifts coming on TikTok and the super chat, super stickers coming. I appreciate that as well. I worked in the Senate. I was not a senator. I was a Senate staffer. I was working as a lawyer. Thank you, spouse of B. I was working as a lawyer, a legal assistant, so to speak, a lawyer in the United States Senate for 5 years. Yep, for the state of Alaska. All right, guys, let's get rolling. So, decent news day. Not a ton of news, but a okay amount. President Biden met today with, thank you, Tex and Natty. Biden met today with a group of countries that are called the Bucharest Nine. Kind of funny. Sounds like a chain gang or something. They met today in Warsaw. The countries, or I should say Bucharest Nine, are basically the Eastern European countries closest to Russia, okay? These include Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. The idea was to come together and talk about their joint security concerns, especially the countries in Eastern Europe being closer to Russia. You can imagine their concerns, right? They've got even more concerns than the French do on the other side of the continent because they're right next to Russia. Interesting in this group, of course, is Hungary, just to keep them in mind, because Hungary is the big PITA of the group. We're going to talk about them a little bit later. Hungary is run by a guy who was sadly just reelected, Viktor Orban, who's kind of a wannabe fascist. I shouldn't even say kind of. He's a fascist. Hungary is still a democracy, barely, but barely by the folks who rank that professionally. Unfortunately, they're they're leaning towards fascism. He's not a good guy. So he's causing a lot of problems in Europe. So him being a part of this group is probably not a great idea. In any case, what the country's told Biden today, because Biden was finishing up his European trip today. Remember, he went to Ukraine a couple of days ago. He was finishing up his European trip today, met with these 9 leaders from Eastern Europe. They told him they want more NATO troops and equipment, including HIMARS, including aerial surveillance equipment, attack helicopters stationed in their countries. They said they aren't necessarily saying they want to buy them. They're also not asking for gifts. What they're saying is they would like the U.S. to station more of our troops and more of our equipment in their countries in order to basically thwart a Russian attack, but it would still belong to us, so we wouldn't have to be, we're not giving away our weapons or anything like that. Next up, Vladimir Putin today held a rally in Moscow. The kind of rallies he likes to hold. He does it basically looks a little bit like the Super Bowl halftime, but if the only reason you're there is because you were threatened with execution. It's always this like big stage, lots of people cheer, Russian flags everywhere cheering. And, 70-year-old Putin in his big, fluffy jacket. It was nothing new. The typical, Russia, blah, blah, blah. I mean, literally no news from it. What was funny was some of the reporters went afterwards and interviewed people coming out. And people were saying basically they were there because they were ordered to be there. Not nobody, but they couldn't find anybody who actually said, "Oh, I came for the show." One university, there were a bunch of government employees. The government employees said, "Yeah, we were told to go." Sorry, I'm getting my water as I talk. I may have to. Actually, I need to get some water. I forgot to refill my water before we started. One quick second here. One quick second. There we go. All right. There we go. So yes, so Putin's big extravaganza today, my sip of water, there we go. A bunch of federal workers said they were ordered to go. University students also said they were ordered to go. And the one university student, this woman goes, well, they told us there was going to be a concert. Well, she goes, first of all, they ordered us to go. Second of all, they told us there was going to be a concert. We didn't know it was going to be just like Putin talking. And they asked her, they go, well, does it bother you that they lied to you to get you to come? And she said, no, you've got to, I'm paraphrasing, but basically what she said is, it's politics. She goes, in this country, this is the way things work, and you just kind of get used to it. If you don't like it, you can leave. I thought her comment was interesting just because I think that's also kind of, that's why I am very 50-50 on feeling sorry for the Russians, right? There's part of me that feels that, I feel sorry that they live in a quasi-dictatorship. And there's a part of me that says, how many hundreds of years do the Russians have to live in quasi-dictatorships before they rise up and do something about it? And this woman's a good example. Mind you, you're at university and you are ordered to go to some event. Like, imagine, that doesn't exist in the West. Your university can't order you to go to some event because the government wants bodies. I mean, right? That isn't even, to her, that's normal. To us, that would be fascism. We'd be like, you can't do that to me. And the fact that they lied to her and told her, you're going to see a concert. And it was really, no, we wanted bodies for the aging dictator. To her, it's like, that's our country. If you don't like it, you can leave. It just, you get it. You get what I'm getting at. I don't terribly feel sorry for these folks. Prigozhin, this was great. This is one of my favorite stories. So I've been talking the last couple of days on how Yevgeny Prigozhin is a Russian oligarch, billionaire. The oligarchs are basically the corrupt billionaires in Russia, and very close to the government, probably giving kickbacks to the government. Putin himself is considered worth like $200 billion with a B. The oligarchs are very rich as well, probably giving him kickbacks. So Prigozhin is one of the rich oligarchs. And he is, among other things, in charge of his own mercenary group, his own army, basically. And they're an army for hire. They're called the Wagner Group, Wagner, but it's pronounced Wagner in Russia. And they have been fighting in Ukraine quite a lot. Now, what the Russians are doing, thank you, Bonnie, they typically use Wagner to fight around the world, like governments hire them. So Syria, they were helping Assad. They're currently fighting, I believe, they're in Mali, fighting the rebels there. I think Central African Republic, I forget the other one, but a couple different African countries they're fighting in. They also they're also running their own mineral mines. I mean, it's really creepy. Basically, they're the new white supremacists in Africa taking over, and the Africans are letting them do it, which is really a little bit. South Africa, in particular, totally fine cozying up to the Russians. Well, that's a conversation for another day. I tweeted about that, by the way. What South Africa is doing, I don't want to get too much of a tangent here, but what South Africa is doing with Russia, they're doing all these military exercises, and they don't care that another small country is being pushed around by the Russians, that the Russians are committing genocide on another country in the name of basically, white supremacist imperialism, basically. And the South Africans couldn't care less, an African government. What the South African government says is, you've got to understand, the Soviet Union was there for us when we were fighting apartheid. Okay, but guess who the Soviet Union was? The Soviet Union was Russia and Ukraine and about 13 other countries stuck together. It wasn't just Russia. Ukraine was helping you as well. But the South Africans have decided that they're going to side with Russia. And a lot of the African governments are either siding with Russia or saying, we're not going to pick a side. Now, mind you, how would they have felt if, now mind you, and I mean, again, I'm not going to defend the US in this. The US had a horrible position on apartheid. Not everyone, right? But a lot of the governments, they had a horrible position on apartheid. Thank you for the gift there, Kanausi. But it pisses me off. I have said this, and I've been a longtime civil rights activist here in the US, and I am particularly critical of people who should know better. I don't like bad guys who are bad on civil rights, and I would consider this a civil rights, human rights issue, what Russia is doing in Ukraine. Of course, I don't like it when bad guys endorse bad guys, right? But the good guys, we're supposed to be better. The South Africans, of all people, should be better than the rest of us, right? They should know what it's like to be oppressed, to have somebody try to basically, well, not wipe you out, but wipe you out in a sense, what the government was doing to them. Thank you, Inspired Woman. And for them to sit there and say, well, Russia supported us when frankly it was Russia and Ukraine, so we're going to basically support Russia's genocide, its imperialist genocide, I think stinks. And the other quick point I'm going to make, though, because I think this is important too, and this is something where I disagree with some of the folks on the left. I think there is legitimate criticism of US foreign policy and of the foreign policy of Western governments. A lot of us have done a lot of bad things. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Kanausi. And we're talking, over the millennia. I mean, over the millennia, we haven't been around that long in America, but, going back to the Native Americans and everybody else. The thing I've always said, though, is every country in the world has a history of this. Every people in the world pretty much has a history of oppressing their neighbors, of going to war and killing each other and everything else. Thank you, killers. And what bothers me when people sort of get on this is I often feel like there's a let's attack America because let's hold America to a different standard, right? That we're evil in terms of our foreign policy because we're Americans and because we're white. I mean, that's one of the arguments that's used a lot. And I think what South Africa is showing us with regards to what South Africa is doing in basically supporting the Russian genocide in Ukraine, and frankly, with regards to what the African countries overall are doing in basically supporting Russia. At best, they're saying, oh, we're agnostic. We're not picking a side. How do you not pick a side? To me, I guess my point here isn't to excuse the US and all the things we've done. It's to say that if you're going to figure out why countries have done bad things in history, it's a lot more complicated than saying, A, America, she's just a bad country, right? B, America and Europe, white people, white people are bad. It's just a hell of a lot more complicated. And again, I will say, I understand where the South Africans are coming from, but at the same time, I don't. Because you know what? In the end, you've got to take a position on genocide. And there is a special duty for people who have been victims of human rights abuses. And I say this domestically for the gay community, for the Black community, for Latinos and everybody else. We all have a special responsibility to defend others who are going through what we've gone through. And when you don't, this is Madeleine Albright's famous quote. Madeleine Albright had a famous quote that pissed a lot of people off, but she always used to say, there's a special place in hell for women who don't defend other women. And I loved that quote. It's funny. She got into total trouble for using it because a lot of the younger women didn't understand what she was going at. And I love that quote because I really think you get it. Okay. Anyway, that was my rant about South Africa. So back to Prigozhin. This is great news. So Prigozhin is a Russian oligarch, Russian billionaire, corrupt as hell. He has his own mercenary group. Okay. And mercenaries are basically soldiers for hire. So the Russian government lets him go around the world, and the government in Mali, the government in Syria hires him to be their soldiers, because even though the Russian military kind of sucks, we now know they're better than the military in Mali. Okay, thank you, Addie, for the rose there. So Prigozhin has been fighting in Ukraine, particularly we'll grab the little map, particularly in eastern Ukraine in Bakhmut. Bakhmut, whereas you can't see it on the map, but it's where my finger is. Bakhmut has been the biggest battle lately. I mean, the biggest fighting going on is there between the Russians and the Ukrainians. And most of the fighters in Bakhmut have been the mercenaries. Thank you, Hilpy for that, have been the Wagner mercenaries. They've been doing, I mean, I don't want to say they've been doing a good job. It's been pretty much they and the Ukrainians have been almost tied. Wagner has been slowly, but we're talking over months, slowly getting more land. But getting more land means, moving a couple miles, moving a couple of kilometers. It's not great, okay? But they're doing better, but not by great. And they've been using a lot of soldiers, ex-cons, not ex-cons, cons, because they've taken convicts out of prison, and they've been just killing them. What Wagner's been doing has been just sending these troops person over person, just running at the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians are literally mowing them down. I mean, it's really horrible. Thank you, John, for the glasses. In any case, Prigozhin now has been Mr. Cocky about it because he's got his own private army. His private army, thank you, Bonnie, is better than the Russian military. And frankly, his private army probably is better than the Russian military. I mean, his private army are murderers. They're absolute murderers, but they're certainly better trained than the Russian military, because we now know the Russian military not so good. Prigozhin's problem, though, is he's been bragging about it. He's fighting in a military side by side with Russian soldiers and bragging about how bad the Russian soldiers are, how good his soldiers are, and how bad the Russian military Ministry of Defense is and the Russian leaders. Well, when you start to talk about how the war effort is being run poorly, right? This war should be going better. We're screwing up. You're not just criticizing the Minister of Defense, you're criticizing the Minister of Defense's boss, who is Vladimir Putin. And a lot of us have been saying, I've been saying all along, that I get the sense that Prigozhin is kind of going for Putin's job. One thing Prigozhin did, thank you, Manda Bear, for the gift. One thing Prigozhin did is he showed up on New Year's with I think it was either Christmas Eve or New Year. I think it was New Year's, actually. Thank you, Annie, for that, with the troops on the front. And what he did was he shows up on the front and he does the big, celebration with the troops in the line of danger and this kind of stuff. Hang on a sec. Oops, sorry about that. With the troops at the front. Putin doesn't. Putin does not. Putin, you might recall, oops, didn't mean to show that thing there. Putin, if you might recall, goes and sorry, I was getting distracted here. Oh yeah, Putin goes and shows up with about 10 or 11 soldiers who are with a green screen behind him, who basically look like it was a fake. Putin did it in order to basically not get killed. He didn't want the troops to see him. In any case, back to Prigozhin. So Prigozhin now, a couple days ago, says, hey, what happened to my ammunition? The Russian government has cut off my ammunition to my troops. And we're all going, this is amazing if this is happening, right? If this is happening, that literally the Russian government is not giving the weapons that Prigozhin's own men need when they are in the middle of fighting in Bakhmut, the biggest battle going on right now in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine. Russian government turns around and goes, that's not true. That's not true. We've been giving him everything. Prigozhin yesterday says that's a lie. Prigozhin then turns around today and puts out, I mean, I'm not going to show you, puts out images of, sorry, I'm just putting on my my temperature a little bit in the room. Now I'm getting a little hot. Shows pictures of dead Russian soldiers and says, you, the Ministry of Defense, killed these Russians. He says 5 times the number of Russians died in Bakhmut in the last week than would have died had he gotten the ammunition he asked for. He even put out a chart showing the exact amounts of ammunition. Thank you, Sophie. Literally, this is how much we use. This is how much I wanted. This is how much I'm getting, showing that the government's screwing him, which is amazing. Okay. Oh yeah. So he puts out this thing showing all the dead soldiers and says that the Russian government has killed our own troops. This is mwah. As somebody just said, Papo Kush just said, thank you, Carla, as well, for the flower there. He's going to get himself thrown out a window. I mean, because that's been happening to a lot of Putin's, Putin's critics and others. Putin's been killing them. He's gonna it's going to be very interesting what happens to him. This is great in terms of any of the military folks can tell you there, who are watching here with us today. Thank you, Tattooed. Is it for the gift there, Tattooed Mom? Morale and cohesion matters. You want the soldiers to be feeling good about the battle. You don't want them to think everything's falling apart. You also want the soldiers to be feeling good about the soldiers they're working with, right? You don't want them to hate each other. You don't want them, like these guys, to literally be thinking, I'm with Wagner and you're the other soldiers with the guy who's literally trying to kill me by not giving me enough weapons. That makes the soldiers not like each other. It makes them not have each other's back. It's a beautiful story. And this is the kind of news I try to bring you guys, because this is the stuff I think thank you, Ryder, for that. This is the stuff I find interesting because they're stories that sort of tell a larger story. Now, this is not one anecdote, actually. We've had many stories now for a while about this, right? But very interesting, very interesting. Sorry, Philippe is asking really quick, how many of Putin's friends are missing now? There were around six oligarchs or so. Remember, it was like the energy company. There were several related to the energy company. Then there were a couple guys recently at a hotel in, I forget where, and they're claiming that the one friend commits suicide and then one friend dies of a heart attack. The other friend then kills himself. And the whole thing was like, a lot of people are dying, basically, and a lot of them are getting thrown out of windows. By the way, Philippa, for folks to know, Philippa did mention that I think she got banned on TikTok, and I just said she wasn't really doing anything. So if one of the mods can maybe help her out, Philippa, why don't you tell us tell me what your handle is, and as long as I see your comment, your TikTok handle, I'll post it, and then folks can hopefully help you on TikTok. I try not to do too many of these during the show because I don't want to get distracted, but I did notice your comment, and when folks ask, we do try to let them back in because that usually does mean it was a mistake. So thank you. Thank you, Zoe, for the perfect. And just so folks know, it's very hard to moderate. We get a lot of crazies on TikTok, a lot of the Russian trolls all the time. So it's incredibly difficult to sort of moderate and keep the crazies gone because you're always going to get some of the good folks not realizing it. So thank you. Thank you for pointing it out, Philippe, and I'm sorry about that. Trust me, it wasn't on purpose. Folks, it gets very difficult with all the... my favorite is I banned one of the moderators once by accident. And then my favorite time was when I made thank you, Tattooed Mom, when I made a Russian troll. I made a Russian troll a moderator once by accident. And I realized I did it, but you guys didn't know I did it. And I literally did it and went, oh my God, because I'm still doing the show. And I'm like, casually talking about some other topic as I'm on TikTok trying to unmoderate this Russian troll. Anyway, oh God. And I got Poppy on TikTok. I had another woman. Thank you, Bonnie, for the gift. I had another woman on YouTube who was one of our mods. Oh, it's funny in retrospect. It's not funny when it's happening live. Anyway, so the Prigozhin story is just glorious. Absolutely glorious. All right. Oh, so let me remind you guys briefly. I do have a Discord set up. One of the ways that I have for us to be able to do more cool things, but also to support my work, I do this for free. I do it full time. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out. Nobody pays me. You guys pay me, so to speak, which I appreciate with the gifts on TikTok, the gifts on YouTube. And one of the other ways we've sort of just grown the community is creating a Discord. And a Discord, kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of a chat community kind of. You can find mine at discord.aravosis.com. Pretty easy for you guys to find. On TikTok, you can go to the link in my profile. Glad you joined, Leanne. Thank you. You can find the link in my profile. Click it. It'll show you the Discord. You guys can go to aravosis.com. Same thing. And one of the cool things we do, we've been fundraising. I've been fundraising a lot just from you guys, but also on the Discord, we have auctions, and I take the profits from the auctions, and half the money goes to support my work because I am doing this for free and I've got to pay I'm not rich. I got to pay my bills. And half of it we channel back to Ukraine. We've bought drones. We've bought supplies for people with disabilities who are literally living on the front line of the battle. We've helped troops get boots. I mean, we bought food for people. I mean, you name it. Well, a couple different things we've been doing. I do have the new Zelensky sweatshirts, but we just finished the auction. I'm not going to start a new one for a couple days, but I've got I'll just show you. But the auction isn't happening right now. Thank you, Kanowski. I found the sweatshirts that are these sweatshirts that Zelensky keeps wearing or wears all the time, like the ones he wore to the White House and everywhere else. Very cool. From the factory that sells them. Flower Lady, exactly. Flower Lady is bragging on TikTok. She won. She did, in fact, win the auction. But I have others, so we're going to have another auction soon. But what we're auctioning right now for the next week, because this is the last one I've got. We have, I bought 4 boxes from a charity in Ukraine called Orc Busters, which is a pun because the Ukrainians call the Russians orcs based on the Lord of the Rings, monsters in the Lord of the Rings, orcs. So the Ukrainians call Russian troops orcs. It's the funniest thing. I asked Vlad once, I said, Vlad, my friend Vlad in Ukraine, I said, orcs are like these monsters from Lord of the Rings. And he goes, yeah, that's why we call them that. I was like, oh God, that's hilarious. That's absolutely hilarious. Sorry, my nose is itching today. So anyway, the Orc Busters, Ukrainian charity, they got their hands on a Russian fighter jet that was shot down over Ukraine back in March of last year. They were able to get pieces of the fighter jet and auctioning them off, which is very cool. Daniel, I'll go to you next. I'll just pull it up so I don't forget. And I bought several boxes of these. They were not cheap, but we bought several boxes. And they've got 2 pieces of the Russian fighter jet that's made from titanium, which is really cool because, I mean, this thing, you can't bend it. I mean, the funny part is it's so light. Can't bend. Anyway, so we're auctioning these off. This is the last box I've got. It includes the location of it being shot down. I did a lot of research, actually, so we know the pilot. I've got videos of the pilot. We know where it was shot down. We've got the pictures of the plane after it was shot down. The coolest thing, and I found this out just a couple days ago, according to the Ukrainian press, the pilot, Russian pilot, born in East Germany, just to add to the weirdness of the story, born in East Germany, the pilot ended up joining the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian military formed a unit of Russian prisoners of war. And I think they called it like Freedom for Russia or Freedom from Russia, something like that. And this guy allegedly joined that group. Now, the only thing I can figure out is whether he didn't join the group and the Ukrainians were trying to pressure him by leaking that information, right? Because he's got a kid and a wife back home. I don't know. Anyway, I wrote up a fact. So I've got like a 3-page fact sheet about the plane and the guy. It's very cool. That auction is going on. That auction's going on now for the next week. And this is the last box we've got. I will do another sweatshirt auction in a couple days. Literally, Melissa won it. Thank you, Leanne. Melissa won it an hour ago. So I like to kind of space them a little bit. Thank you, Keith. I don't like to just put them up immediately, but in the next day or two, I'll put another one up for the Zelensky sweatshirts. All right, let me keep going here, guys. And do please keep the gifts coming. Like I said, gifts on TikTok, gifts on YouTube. They do help me pay the bills, so thank you. Okay, this was interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel. Let me see Daniel's question first, and then I've got a really interesting New York Times story that was pretty wild. Daniel O'Neill, what happens to the Russians who've planted to Crimea since 2014? Which is about 2 million, I believe, Russians have moved to Crimea since 2014. If they can't or won't flee on liberation, does Ukraine expel them? Could Russia force a humanitarian crisis for propaganda? This is an interesting question. Thank you, Elle, for the gift there. Oh, did I miss? And Shimmer for the cat paws. Make sure I didn't miss anything else when I was reading that. Thank you, guys. And who's that for the flowers? Killers for the flower. Crimea, Ukrainian territory in southern Ukraine, invaded by the Russians back in 2014, and they stole it. The Russians now claim it's part of Russia. It's not, it's part of Ukraine. The problem is it had a population of, from what I remember, I had researched this. I believe the pre-war population of Crimea was around 2 million. So 2 million. Russia invades and takes over and makes it part of Russia. Well, if you're Ukrainian and you're living in Crimea, I don't care if it's your ancestral home. Russia invades and says you're now part of Russia, you're probably going to leave, right? You were part of a free country before and you just got taken over by a dictatorship. Thank you, user 8224. So 1 million Ukrainians flee Crimea. Okay, so the population instead of 2 million goes down to 1 million. Well, then what happens? Another 2 million Russians arrive because the Russians, like any good despot or any good dictatorship, when you're taking over land, right, you try to fill it with your own people. So Russia puts another 2 million of their own people there. So now the Ukrainian population is up to the Crimean population is up to 3 million, but it looks like maybe as many as 2 million are people Russia put there. So what Daniel's question, it's a good one, is, I don't know what the answer is. What do you do with the people who are there if Ukraine liberates it? Because they're basically, honestly, it's an issue that doesn't just apply to Ukraine. I don't want to get into other topics that are very polemical, but you all know what I mean. When you start to settle land that isn't yours and start to move your population in, it gets very complicated. Thank you, Ronnie, for the hat there. I don't know. I also don't know in terms of international law what happens. The thing is, the Russians probably don't have the land. The Russians don't have the land legally. I don't know, Daniel. I really don't know what happens, but it's a really interesting question nobody's talked about, because you could have 2 million. They are there illegally. You could have 2 million people, right, who are there illegally and basically sitting in people's houses, sitting on their land. These are Ukrainians who own the land. Now, yeah, that's a good Brave. That was very funny. Brave Cobra over on Twitch says, were the Russians in Crimea promised a concert there? Because I started the beginning of the show saying that Putin held a big speech in Moscow, and the way they got people there, they ordered government employees to go, and then they told university students there's a concert, and there was of course no concert. Tamyo is saying the Turks did the same thing in northern Cyprus. They forcibly removed the Greek Cypriots. Yeah, no, it's a very, and what's weird over time is over a longer period of time, it gets even more complicated. Thank you, Big Drama. Actually, thank you very much. That's very generous of you. I don't want to get into the whole Middle Eastern thing, but it gets very complicated when you go back generations, because then you're like, your family's, forget the new one. The new ones are a little easier, but your family's been on the land since 1947 or whenever the hell it was. That's 80 years ago. The other person was there before. Honestly, gentrification goes the same way, I think, in the US. We have a lot of these issues. Thank you, Big Drama. Very cool, Unicorn, and very generous of you. You're being very nice tonight. Thank you. I think the gentrification issue in America is just as complicated, because I always get on the gentrifiers and I'm always like, well, okay, you're saying certain communities are being moved out. How long were they there? Were they always there? Were there other communities moved out before them? And were there other communities moved out before those other communities? Things change a lot around the world as well. I'm not going to defend the Russians here, but it gets really complicated over longer periods of time. Thank you, Kanausi. Over a long period of time, it starts to get much more complicated to say, well, like Crimea. Well, 200 years ago, Catherine the Great, did whatever the hell she did. Thank you, SVMT, for the mustache there. In the 1700s, Catherine the Great did whatever she did in Crimea and Odessa or wherever. Okay, but that was the 1700s. It gets complicated when you over long periods of time. Thank you, Purnell. It is not complicated when you're talking about 2014, because that was only 8 years ago and the Russians stole it. So I don't think there's any kind of a squatter's right for Russians, that basically, not to mention the Russians who came there knowing that they were stealing the territory. They knew that they were stealing land that belonged to Ukraine, that their country invaded and took. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for those Russians either. Lilia is asking or saying regarding Crimea, The Ukrainian government said a while ago that all the Russians living there will be expelled as they are all illegal immigrants there. Good for them. Wow. Now, I would be very curious what, if there's any kind of international human rights issue, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm saying I'm a lawyer by training. So like we're trained, even if we don't like it, sometimes there are laws that kind of go against that. You'd have to enforce it, but very interesting. Wow. I mean, obviously I'm fine with them being thrown out, but the Russians, they're squatting basically, but all right. So this is an interesting story. We are going long tonight, I can tell, because we've gotten into discussions on other stuff. So this was a really interesting story from the New York Times today. Listen to this. Ukraine appears to have stepped up its assaults on positions deep into Russian-held territory, with nearly a dozen explosions reported overnight into Wednesday in the southern port city of Mariupol. Mariupol, all the way down here. Okay. Now keep in mind, I'm going to show you the area Russia controls right now in Ukraine. Okay. They control pretty much all of this, all of this, all of this, and this. So all of this. So Mariupol right in the middle of what's being controlled. Thank you, Leanne, for the trains. I appreciate that. So Mariupol is right in the middle. There were a series of explosions overnight in Mariupol and explosions in other occupied parts of Ukraine, according to Ukrainian officials, local residents, and video. Okay, fair enough, right? So it looks like the Ukrainians attacked the Russian territory. Listen to this. The areas are outside the known range, thank you, Truthful, are outside the known range of the American-made HIMARS missile system that Ukraine has in its arsenal. Thank you, Bonnie. In other words, it looks like the Ukrainians are hitting the Russians using a weapon we're not familiar with because it's going further than the current U.S. weapons can go. Now, does it mean we've given them some weapons that we haven't told people publicly? Does it mean the Ukrainians have built their own weapons, which we know they're very good at? I mean, who the hell knows? But really, I thought that was a fascinating little story there. And we've seen news like this before, right? Because we don't really know. But remember, we saw other stories months ago that people were wondering whether Ukraine even got the long-range missiles, the ATACMS that America has been refusing to provide. Oh, going after the bridge. Going after the bridge, there was that initial thought of, wait a minute, if it wasn't a truck bomb, how the hell did the Ukrainians hit it? So that's a little bit different. Hungary. So Hungary being evil, this is not news. The Hungarian prime minister threatened to veto European Union sanctions against Russia. Basically, the EU sanctions have to be renewed every 6 months. And the European Union is getting ready to renew the sanctions. And at the same time, they wanted to add on 4 more Russians to be, under the sanctions regime, right? So 4 more Russians to be sanctioned. And they wanted to renew it for a year rather than 6 months, so that every 6 months they didn't have to keep doing this. These are all the sanctions they passed so far. They renew them every 6 months. Hungary's being a pain for a variety of reasons, and is basically saying they're not going to do it unless they drop at least, I think either they objected to the 4 names or they objected to at least some of the names that were there. And they want to renew it every 6 months, because if it's every 6 months, then Hungary gets to be a pain in the ass every 6 months. I will say one thing, and I don't know sort of European Union law with this. I read one article today that was, it was actually in Politico, I think their morning briefing. And they said something it was Politico Europe. So it was written by Europeans. And it said, how long until the European Union takes away Hungary's right to vote? And I didn't understand what that was about and how that works. But Politico Europe seemed to think that was a thing that was possible. But basically, that Hungary just keeps screwing things up. But I don't know whether in the EU, if you can take someone who's being so bad and basically say, okay, you're being put aside for a while. I don't know. I mean, I wish we would do it in NATO as well, for Hungary and possibly Turkey, but Spain has said it will give 6 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, and the tanks should be in Ukraine by the end of March or early April. That's good. Poland is going to send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine in the next few weeks. That's nice. 14 Leopard 2 tanks in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's good. This isn't enough. I mean, Ukraine needs a hell of a lot more. We're talking Russia. I think has like a couple thousand tanks. Nonetheless, it's good that at least some of these things are arriving. Italy said it's going to send Ukraine 2 air defense systems. Under its new military aid package, Italy will provide Ukraine with Spada and Skyguard air defense systems beyond the SAMPT, maybe SAMPT Mamba, which it earlier pledged. Thank you, Big Drama. That's very nice. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Actually had turkey soup for dinner, by the way. Coincidence. Russia, actually, this one made me laugh. Sorry. Quick sip of water. That was a very nice gift. Yes. Thank you for that. Russia carried out a test of an intercontinental ballistic missile during Biden's speech or during his visit in Ukraine. Now, interestingly, this test, an ICBM are the missiles that we use and Russia uses to send nukes like across the world, right? So if we wanted to nuke Moscow, we would typically, there's a lot of ways of doing it. One of them is an ICBM. ICBMs are launched from the ground. They'd be an example is they're the kind of missiles we probably have out in North Dakota. Was it? I forget where else. Wyoming. I forget where else we've got them, but North Dakota we do. And they, way up in the air, like way high, arc over the pole, come down over Russia. Well, Russia tested one of theirs during Biden's visit to Ukraine, and they of course meant it to be, like they were being threatening and cool. Well, bottom line is, the experts sort of came out today and said, if the missile test went okay, Putin would have announced it during his speech today. He would have said, and the missile, I think it's called Samyat, but we call it Satan II. That's our nickname for it. It's a huge missile, like a huge, scary missile. Had the missile gone okay, had the test worked, Putin would have bragged about it today. Putin didn't mention the missile today. So the experts are saying clearly the missile test failed, and it's just kind of funny. Yeah, not today, Satan. That's okay. That's perfect. Sorry, Duke on TikTok. Not today, Satan. That's worthy of a New York Post headline. Oh, Sarmat. I thought it was Samyat. Sarmat. Thank you for that. Anyway, very interesting, but I thought it was also kind of hilarious. The UN is voting in the General Assembly on a resolution in the next few days calling on a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in line with the principles of the charters of the United Nations. Who cares? Obviously, it doesn't matter if the UN votes on, we want peace. What observers are saying is it'll be interesting to see where China comes down on this, because China's been in the news, possibly going to be giving possibly going to be giving Russia lethal weapons. At least that's been the scuttlebutt the U.S. is getting worried about. My mom called today and actually asked a very good question. In the media, they keep saying, thank you, Purnell, for the gift. They keep saying China is possibly going to give Russia lethal weapons. And Mom said, well, they're weapons. What do you mean lethal weapons? And I thought about it and I said, okay. For example, we could give Ukraine weapons such as anti-missile systems that are used for, Stinger missiles or the Patriot missile system that we're giving Ukraine. The Patriot missile is meant to, it can shoot down planes, so you could call it lethal. But if a system is meant to simply be defensive, you might not call it lethal. So in other words, a system that is to shoot down incoming rockets, would you call it lethal? Maybe not. So when you say a lethal weapon, you pretty much mean bombs, guns, artillery shells, or artillery, things that are meant to kill other people. So that's the difference. Thank you, Inspired Woman. Actually, that's a very nice one, Inspired Woman. Thank you for that. Sorry. I'm forgetting my TikTok gifts. That was a very nice one. And Magic. Now, just so you guys know on TikTok, when you do the gifts, I can't always see your full name at the top. So I was going to call you Magic Carp. Magic Carp fan, that works well enough. Thank you for the skating corgi. I also have we've got two other stories, and then we'll go to the questions. I'll go a little late tonight because the news has been going a little late tonight. I was going to say I've got a Patreon as well. Patreon is another great way you guys can help support my work. I do this full time, doing it for free. Nobody's paying me. I mean, you guys are paying me, so I appreciate it. But Patreon's a really neat way. Thank you, Nathan. You can go to patreon.com/Aravosis. You can find it with the link in my profile on TikTok. Thank you, Bad Feeling, for the guitar. You can find it via the aravosis.com link there on YouTube. Patreon is simply a way that you can give, $5, $10, $25 a month, whatever, as a gift to a creator, and it gives them a steady income, which is kind of nice. Thank you, Bonnie, because it lets us know all the gifts are coming in at the same time, and it just helps you pay the bills better. So if you can do that, I appreciate it. It's patreon.com/Aravosis. If you've been watching for a while and like it, consider doing it. The other thing is, if you do $5 or more a month at Patreon, we've got the instructions there how to do it. That makes you a VIP member of our Discord community, which gives you access to our Discord auction, which only a small number of people have, a couple other benefits as well. And it just frankly helps support my work. So that's nice too. Thank you, Christopher, for the guitar there. Two other stories really quick. Russia's deputy foreign minister said today that Moscow's decision to pull out of the New START nuclear treaty does not raise the risk of nuclear war. Honestly, I don't care what Russia says about these things. They're lying on this stuff anyway. But I think it's interesting news that Russia's playing nuclear games and then felt the need to come out and say, no, this doesn't raise the risk of nuclear war. Russia's kind of trying to have it both ways. I'm actually very intrigued. I don't know why Russia would try to calm us down. The very reason that Russia is playing games with the nuclear treaty is they want to scare all of you. They want all of you to just hear the news and go, oh my God, Russia pulled out of a nuclear. They didn't even pull out of the treaty, actually. They didn't. They said they did, and then they didn't. But they want you to think, oh my God, this nuclear thing, nuclear, scary, right? Nuclear war. And therefore, why would they the next day turn around and go, no, we don't think there's a greater chance of nuclear war? If I were Russia, I'd be saying, yes. Thank you, Canada Zen. I'd be saying, yeah, there's a greater chance of, if I'm Russia, there's a greater chance of nuclear war every moment that you help Ukraine. So I'm actually very intrigued that Russia tried to sort of talk it down a little bit today. I don't know why. It's interesting. Final news report. This is almost funny, but actually a little dangerous, I think. TikTok does not take 70%. TikTok takes 50%, though, which is still a lot, but they don't take 70%. They don't take that much. I do like the gifts on TikTok. And frankly, for a lot of folks, I think the gifts are sort of the most fun way of doing it. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Happy Beach family. If you want to give me gifts and you want me to get more of it, you can go to my profile on TikTok. There's PayPal, there's Cash App, there's Venmo, and there's tips. Actually, the tips button that's in my profile, we get 100% of that. Thank you, Spirit Seer. But I don't mind the gifts, because the gifts, even though TikTok gets half of the gifts, they're fun, and it gives you something fun, and it lets me see the gift, and if I see it, I can acknowledge it, which I think is kind of nice for people too. So I don't mind. And I will say this: your guys' gifts, it's not, thank God, it's not 70% they take, but the gifts actually do add up. So thank you. But yeah, if you want, you can go to my profile, either the tips or the link there, and give that way too. And I do get more. Yes. So thank you. So listen to this. Sky News is reporting. Thank you, Benji, or be like Benji and get the really nice whale with the wave there. Oh, we got a number of you guys. Annie with the fruit hats and Elle with the heart hands. Thank you, guys. Thank you, great screen as well. So Sky News today. Sky News reports that air raids and threats of missile strikes were broadcast across Russian cities in a suspected hacking attack today. Thank you, Purnell. The fake attacks were heard on radios in 10 cities, and I watched a couple of videos showing people recording this in their car. The fake attacks were heard on radios in 10 cities, with the video showing it's saying in Russian, attention, attention, threat of a missile strike. It's all well and good to try to scare the Russians, because the Russians are committing genocide in Ukraine. Fair enough. The thing is, I'm not sure it's very safe to have Russian radio broadcasting that there are incoming missiles, because if they're incoming missiles, the concern is either they're coming from Ukraine or they're coming from America, and either one could potentially have you shoot back. Thank you, Canada Zen. So Anyway, it's my evil side is glad that the hackers, whoever they are, played a game on the Russian public, because the Russian public probably does need to kind of appreciate that this is serious business what they're doing. But I sometimes feel like doing a hacking of what could be a nuclear strike, maybe not the best idea, right? I'm a little old fashioned when it comes to pretending you're doing nuclear strikes. Elise Leonard, a Chinese YouTuber, thank you, user73 there. A Chinese YouTuber says China may give, thank you, eGermany, China may give Russia weapons because it's in China's interest for the war to grind on. Oh, I did see that. In order to deplete the Western reserves. Of course, the depletion could go both ways. Well, I think China would love the depletion to go both ways. Oh, big drama. Whoa. Okay, that was an insane gift on TikTok. Sorry, guys, but I have to acknowledge like the crazy gifts on TikTok. That was an insane gift. That was very cool. Sorry, it was this whole dragon thing. One of the things too on TikTok, you can tell when the gift lasts a long time, the person was being extra generous. Anyway, thank you. That was very cool. Well, Father of Dragons, is that what it is? Oh, that's funny. Thank you. That was really sweet of you. Thank you so much for that. It's very cool too. Yes, you missed it. Well, somebody else has to buy the dragon. Mags missed it. That was very cool. Thank you, guys. So yes, I had read this today too, that the analysis is that from China's perspective, actually, China's perspective is what some people were saying about the US. Remember how some people were saying, oh, is it possible that Biden isn't giving Ukraine all the weapons they want because, Biden wants Russia and Ukraine to keep fighting because it makes Russia weaker? I don't think so. I think that's nastier than Biden would be. I don't think Biden would do that. China, on the other hand, one analysis I read was that the Chinese would like nothing better than for America and Russia to keep wearing each other down. China's two big competitors, militarily is Russia on the border, and economically and militarily is America, and culturally is America. Even though China is allied with Russia, it doesn't hurt China for Russia to be a little bit weaker, right? It absolutely helps China for America and Europe to be weaker, for America and Europe to be spending all their weapons and spending their, I don't want to call it political capital. What do you want to call it, right? Where basically, after a number of, for example, if the Ukraine war goes on for 5 years, the American people and the European people might say, we're getting tired of war. We don't want to fight a war in Taiwan. That's what the Chinese are hoping, which is very interesting. So that could be, anyway, that's the thinking of what the Chinese are doing, So, Elise, that's an interesting question. So basically, at the very least, they if they were to plan to invade Taiwan in the coming years, which there's a lot of concern about, they might be very happy for America and Europe to use up all their weapons and their money, and the American and the European people to basically get real tired of fighting. Because then when it comes time to defend Taiwan, maybe we're tired of it. I don't think we will be, but nonetheless, if you're China, right? Ben, thank you as well. Very generous of you. Do you think Russia is seeking aid from China to intimidate the West? Do you think Russia is seeking aid from China to intimidate the West into seeking a peace deal, as we are less likely to sanction China for economic reasons, and we don't want to aggravate them because of the Taiwan situation? Russia seeking aid from China. Look, I think Russia is seeking aid from China because Russia's not winning this war. Okay. Russia's eventually running. Russia's clearly running low on some weapons, right? Not everything. Thank you, Coeur de Leon. Good to see you again. Not everything, but they're running low. They're running low on some weapons, right? They had to turn to Iran and North Korea. North Korea, I think they got artillery from, which is really bizarre. So my guess is they first went to China because they need the help. Second of all, getting weapons from China cements China much more closely in Russia's camp. It's like a bear hug kind of thing, right? If they do that. So that if China starts helping, Think about this. How many countries, since the war started, how many countries have moved closer to Russia? I don't think anybody has. China, I don't think anybody has. Nobody's moved closer to Russia. So if China starts giving weapons to Russia, that would be China moving closer. That's a propaganda win for Russia. Also, if you're Russia, the same thing like China. If you're Russia, Russia wants good relations with China, but Russia doesn't want good relations between America and China. Russia would like nothing better than for America in particular to have the American economy hurt. Again, maybe even war. If America and China are at war, potentially. Now, if you're Russia, it's 50-50 because war can get out of control on your border. So if you're Russia, you shouldn't be that stupid as to say let's have war, on our borders. But yeah, I don't know. I doubt, Ben, that it's very 11th dimensional chess kind of thing. I doubt that. To the Russians. I think the Russians are just exactly security always is saying on TikTok, they're running out of money and weapons. That's what I think is the main reason. But, if you're good in politics, you start to think of the other reasons that, yeah, maybe we can use China to sort of piss off the Americans and maybe even hurt China's relation with you. And by the way, if China starts giving weapons, might other countries come along and start giving weapons and start saddling up to Russia? I don't know that they would, but they might. Let me look here. Hang on a sec. Oop, there's Elise. Thank you for the flower there. Who is that? Timothy. Thank you. Sorry, make sure I didn't miss any gifts here. Let me pull up a TikTok question really quick. And then Otanbot had an interesting one about Medvedev, who I think has been little drinking today. Thank you, Big Drama. Sorry, we got a very cool Golden Gate. That's a cool one too. Thank you. I know that's a cool one. Thank you very much for that. Hang on, let me pull up. I'm pulling up TikTok questions. Why you Americans lying? It's why are you Americans lying? Not why you Americans lying. It doesn't work that way. Hang on here. Deep. Q&A. Here we go. I'm not sure what that's referring to, Alessandro. Sorry, Alessandro had a comment, but I'm not sure what we were talking about. Oh, he's talking about the European Union. I get it. Okay, Alessandro was saying, I'm Alessandro from Belgium, and sadly, it's not possible to keep a country from voting. It's a pro-democratic thing. He's talking about Hungary with the European Union. The thing that I thought was surprising, though, was, as I said, Politico's Europe office, and Politico is a very good publication, wrote this thing saying how long until Europe doesn't want to do that anymore. Bariatric Bella, let me hang on a second. I'm gonna do something as we're talking here. I might as well. I can put it live again. Sorry, Bariatric Bella. We were doing you know what? Actually, I'm gonna hang on for that. Sorry, Bariatric Bella was asking about a fundraiser. That we had for camouflage nets for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have been making these nets for camouflage. And I was going to put it back live again. We only got like $900. It was okay, but it wasn't as much as we needed. We are going to launch a new fundraiser tomorrow. I haven't launched it yet, and I would rather have you give to the new one if you don't mind. We got my friend Vlad in Ukraine. Thank you for the gift there. One of the things we like to do with my show is we've been raising money for things in Ukraine. Raised over $80,000. And that's been money just directly for Ukraine. I haven't gotten any of that. I also do fundraisers and things like that where, not fundraisers. I do auctions on YouTube, auctions on my Discord, and half the auction money we've been channeling back to Ukraine. Half of it's to support my work because I do this full time and nobody pays me but you guys. So it helps my work. But we are going to do a new fundraiser tomorrow, and this is one of the fundraisers where 100% goes to Ukraine. We were contacted by the Ukrainian military, and I mean, Vlad showed me the letters and everything. It's really interesting. Ukrainian military officially requested a number of drones that they'd like. They know that there's folks on the outside who can help, and I give the Ukrainians credit for this. They know that people are willing to help, so they're actually coming out and saying, "Here's a couple ways you can help." They gave us 6 different drones they're looking for. The total amount of money needed is around 17,000 euros, which is maybe around $18,000. They've already got about 6,000 euros. They need another 11,000. So that's almost $12,000. It's a lot. I don't know that we've ever raised that much in one fundraiser before, but I'm going to put it up tomorrow and we're going to try. The drones are a big deal, as you guys know. I also, because I checked with Vlad, I can tell you the drones. We've even got a picture of the troops that are going to they're using the drones. The drones are going to be used for the Ukrainian fight in Bakhmut and Volodar. And I checked, and Vlad said we're allowed to tell people this is a big deal. Bakhmut is the battle. That's the one I've been telling you guys about. That's been the biggest battle right now is Bakhmut, the one happening here. Volodar is also pretty cool. Volodar is the one down here right off of Donetsk. Volodar is the battle that I was telling you guys about. These are not the drones you're looking for. Okay, that was very funny. That was very funny on TikTok. Volodar is the location where the Russians got destroyed last week. Remember last week when we said the Russians could have lost as many as like 1,000 troops in one day? And they got so scared that the Russian troops ran away from the Ukrainians and they left 30 functioning military vehicles there, right? Amazing, absolutely amazing. So any case, we're going to see if we can help both of them. We're going to help both of them. Calibra's asking a fair question. Calibra's saying, just curious, why do we need to raise funds if we're already giving them billions? The thing is, war is expensive. If your whole country is being wiped out, it's expensive. We have given Ukraine a lot. It's not enough. It reminds me of in America, at least, sadly. If you're American, you'll appreciate this. If you're not American, you might not get it because most of the rest of the world works really nice on healthcare. Ours is a little more cutthroat. It used to be in America, but it still is. Obamacare helped a lot in this regard, actually, the Affordable Care Act. But in America, used to be and still does work this way, really, that like people that have cancer, they go bankrupt. They go absolutely bankrupt because the medical bills are so high. And your insurance would never cover enough. Your insurance before Obamacare, the insurance had annual and lifetime caps on health insurance in America. So literally, I think it was 40% of insurance in America, health insurance, had annual and lifetime. So meaning, in 1 year, you could only spend X amount on healthcare. And if you spent any more, you didn't get insurance for the rest of the year. Well, people with cancer in America, forget it. Insurance, even worse, had lifetime limits. So people had insurance policies, 40% of the insurance policies. People had insurance policies where you could spend up to $2 million in your lifetime, and then that's it. The insurance policy was over, and nobody else would give you insurance. Well, this is America where everything is so expensive. People would get lung cancer, for example, and they'd run out of insurance because it was so expensive. Thank you, Bonnie. There was a famous American movie reviewer called Roger Ebert. Really neat guy. He and Gene Siskel did this wonderful, very famous in America for like my generation. Roger Ebert had oral cancer of the mouth. He was lucky that he had insurance, health insurance through this is how screwy the American system is, through 3 different things because he had taught at a university, he had written at a newspaper, and then he went to a second newspaper. So he had retirement insurance from all 3 of them, okay? His oral cancer went through the insurance of 2 of the different insurances. He hit his lifetime cap, and he was on his last insurance when he died. Obamacare changed this, but my point is, take it back to Ukraine. Just because you give a lot of money doesn't mean it's enough money. America has been very generous to Ukraine. Europe has been very generous. The Germans actually, I'd looked at it recently. The Germans have given a lot more than they get credit for because the Germans keep shooting themselves in the foot. Let's face it. The Eastern Europe, especially Eastern Europe, because Eastern Europe, the Brits, the Canadians, of course, but Eastern Europe, because they're smaller countries, Estonia, Poland especially, have given a ridiculously wonderful amount of money or military equal to money because their economies are so small. So compared to their economy, they've given a great amount. Just because you give a lot doesn't mean it's enough. It costs a lot of money to defend yourself against a bigger country that's trying to destroy you. And in this case, yeah, they need more. They need more. If Ukraine had enough, they would be destroying Russia today. And I will say this, part of the reason Ukraine needs more is because we're not giving them everything, right? We know that Ukraine needs longer range missiles that the US refuses to give them because we're afraid Ukraine's going to do a little too well with the long range missiles. We're afraid if Ukraine gets the long range missiles, they're going to get their territory of Crimea back. This is the Ukrainian territory that Russia stole in 2014. So far, we're not giving them the missiles. We didn't want to give them the tanks. We only decided to give Ukraine tanks 3 weeks ago. Well, it's going to take months, if not longer, for Ukraine to get those tanks. American tanks may not arrive for 6 months to a year. We waited so long. So we've given a lot, but that doesn't mean it's enough. Anyway, there you go. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So in any case, it's not live yet, but I'm going to launch the fundraiser tomorrow. I don't know if people are going to want to give. I think I like giving to very concrete things that we can taste and feel, and the idea of knowing the military, that's okay. No, and I appreciate you asking. That's why I was trying to explain, because I didn't get the feeling you were a bad person. It's a fair point. And frankly, guys, let me just point out too, because Calibra was the one asking this on TikTok. This is why I get critical of Biden, because I wish he would explain this stuff more. You know, you've got bad guys that are asking the questions Calibra's asking, and it's making good guys say, well, that's a good question. I mean, and it is. We've given a lot of money. Why do we need more, right? We've given money for a year. Why haven't they won yet? Actually, why are we in this war anyway? That's a good question that I still don't think Biden's given a good answer with. I think he should give a better answer. It's not enough. He gave a speech yesterday. Everyone liked the speech. I didn't like Biden's speech in Warsaw. I thought it was boring. Everyone thought it was good, so maybe it worked. But I think he needs a much better speech that very intelligently explains to people why. And frankly, I don't need to, I've given you guys my rant on this before. You should be linking it to what America is about, right? It's something the Europeans don't always like, but we are very proud of our country, and we're very proud of our democracy. And we're proud of the fact that we're, the remaining superpower at the moment, I think. But also we do okay. Even though we are not perfect, okay, we all know that, Americans pride themselves on trying to do good things around the world. We like to think that we're a force for good. We like to think that when we even get involved in Iraq or wherever, that we are, right? I mean, that we're going after the bad guys. Now, of course, I'm not going to defend the first Iraq War, 1991, absolutely important, absolutely necessary, important, and successful war. We saved Kuwait, and that made a huge difference because of oil and everything else, hugely important. The second one, BS, obviously, the second war. But you need to play on that with the American people. You need to explain to the American people that it pisses me off, because also, it's not just about Ukraine. I think it's important for us to be involved in the world. Right? We like to export freedom. Yeah. And we should be involved in the world. We are a unique, here's the thing. Again, I would throw this back at Republicans. If God created America and God literally blessed America, which Republicans love to tell us God did, don't you think God would want us to go out there and spread the good news? Right? Do you think, really, do you think God would give you all of these talents and benefits and wealth and ability not for you to go use it? Right? But we don't do that. Anyway, this is why I fault Biden on this. I do fault Biden on this. I think he does a bad job explaining this stuff. God, how did I go off on that tangent? I don't even remember. All right, we're over, but it's okay. Like I said, Medvedev. Let me bring up this from Medvedev. So this was Otan Bots. So I want to make sure nobody had bought a question or anything when that I missed. I don't think I did. Otan Bot had a question. Thank you, Lexinati. Otan Bot had a question. This was pretty wild today. Again, I think the guy's a drunk. Not Otan Bot, but Dmitry Medvedev, who we're about to talk about. Dmitry Medvedev, who's former Russian, was he prime minister? I always forget what his position was. I think it was prime minister. Long time ago. We used to think he was the liberal, meaning in the American sense that he was the good guy. He was the moderate in Russia. He was going to be the savior. He's now a lunatic. He's a right-wing lunatic now. Thank you, Cha-Cha Miller, for that. He's a right-wing lunatic. He's the democracy televangelist. Exactly. I don't think I'd be a very good speechwriter, Brave Cobra. I'm not sure how to write. I don't know that I'm a good speechwriter. There's people better than me at writing speeches, and they know how to write Americana speeches. That's what I think. I think Biden doesn't want to give that kind of speech. Otherwise, he's the president. He can get somebody to write him a good speech. I almost feel like there's a reason he's not doing it. You know what I mean? I just don't think his instincts are correct on this. Anyway, Dmitry Medvedev. He's like the deputy National Security Council something or other, big Putin advisor, okay? Warns today that Russia will disappear. This is true. Will disappear if it loses the war in Ukraine. Otanbot says, what would a fragmentation or a collapse of Russia mean for the West and others such as China? Jesus, that's a hard question. I will say that Medvedev, when he said Russia would actually, and Aaron Sorkin's speech is exactly what it is. It's a West Wing speech. It's the speech from the American president when what's his face, the American president, is giving the speech about why he's running for president and why he's a member of the ACLU. Thank you, Germany Ball. It's that kind of impassioned speech that Americans love. And even though Biden's not a good speaker, I don't care. You can practice the damn thing. Anyway, so Medvedev said, if Russia doesn't win this war, Russia will cease to exist. It will disappear. And we have nuclear weapons, right? Everybody mark your little bingo board there. Thank you, Dog Pick, for the hat there, dog picture. Medved's, the conventional wisdom is that Medved's a drunk, basically, and just kind of goes and rambles about, I mean, quite literally, he's crazy. He just rambles about this stuff. But, there has been talk about whether Russia would fall apart if they lose the war, because the Russian military has been shown to be much weaker than anybody thought it was. And that empowers Russia's enemies. It also empowers Russia's victims, right? Countries that were victimized by Russia as part of the Soviet Union are now much less afraid of Russia. And also groups of people within Russia could kind of say, you know what? Maybe it's time that we leave, that we leave this unholy union. I will tell you that just as I wouldn't even have to talk about the dictator thing. You want to be careful with stuff like that. You want to be, I don't know. I mean, you're talking about a country with nuclear weapons, so it falling apart could be very dangerous. It would, if it could fall apart nicely, it might be better for the world that Russia get broken up, because so far Russia is like the serial killer that keeps coming back for more, or the vampire. And at this point, how many hundreds of years do we have to kill the vampire before it goes away? I just feel like enough of it already. Yeah, could you hear Sasha in the background? Yeah, she did a quick shake and was walking around. That's very funny, Ned. So whatever. So I'm just checking here to making sure my good mic is on. Yeah, my good mic is on. That's good. I don't know what it means for the West, though. It could be really dangerous or it could be really good. I mean, I don't know. And China, I couldn't tell you in a million years what it means for China. If there were a nice way, it might be nice. If there were a nice way for it to go away and for a lot more people to be free, Russia would be less of a pain in the butt. I would hate, people say run for office. I would just hate it. I'm not a nice person. I mean, I'm really not. Like, I don't want to suck up to people, and so much of politics is so nasty. I almost prefer being at the fringes of it this way and trying to make a difference. I mean, thank you though. I appreciate it. I don't know. There's a parody. Oh, there's a parody of Medvedev on one of the YouTube channels, Kavardal 95. Kelly is saying, interesting. Okay. Well, I put it up there. Folks can check it out. All right. Question on China. All right. Let me do a quick look. We're going to probably close shop soon because it's already 7:15 here, guys, but we've been quite chatty today, which is nice. No update on Ukraine getting long-range missiles. Okay, somebody got mute. Carla says she was muted and apparently didn't mean to be a bad person. Carla, well, you're not blocked, just so you know. So you might be muted, but you'll unmute soon. You're not blocked, Carla, so don't worry about that. It should, if either they can do it, they can unmute you, or at least you'll unmute soon. It's not permanent. I don't think China came out with it yet, did they? What do you think China's plan for a peace treaty is? Okay, they didn't come out with it. And what China going to get out of it? I mean, China's plan for a peace treaty isn't going to be anything good. I doubt that. I mean, they're in with Russia. I mean, why they're doing what they get out of it is why they're doing it. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I don't know what China. All I can think of is whether China is coming up with like some peace proposal because they're trying to find another way to screw it to Biden, right? That's my guess, because they're not happy with Biden anyway because of the balloons and everything else, right? But also, as we talked about the question earlier, Missy, it's a nice day. You can go out in because of the balloon situation, but also, as we talked about earlier, China would like nothing better than for, America to be basically suffering from the war. So I don't know. I just don't know. That's a good question. I just don't have a good answer for you. All right, guys, I am going to do the quick recap and then call it quits here. I did have dinner, but I'm getting hungry now. I'm not going to eat the cake. I have a chocolate cake that I made before the show looking at me, but I have a physical tomorrow and I am insisting on not spiking my cholesterol before my physical. So I'm not going to eat my chocolate cake tonight, even though I'm dying to eat my homemade chocolate cake. I'm dying. Thank you. Who is that? Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. Also, chocolate cake is better the next day anyway. Way better, like it's a rich chocolate. It's Nigella Lawson's chocolate cake. Supposedly much better. I don't fast during Lent. Also, our Lent is different anyway. Greek Easter is a week after. So even if I were going to fast, our Lent doesn't start for a week. All right. So the news today we covered: Biden met with the Bucharest 9 leaders, Eastern European governments in Warsaw today, where the countries pushed Biden to move more troops and more weapons into Eastern Europe to protect them. Putin held a big rally today in Moscow where he bussed in state workers and university students and lied to them about what was going on. He told the university students it was a big concert. It wasn't. It was just him. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of the Wagner mercenary group, is still complaining that the Russian military is not giving his mercenaries who are fighting in Ukraine the ammunition they need. He says they're only getting about 20% of the ammunition they need. And it has killed lots of people. And he even released pictures of dead bodies today to show the Russian troops who basically Putin, without naming him, is killing. I mean, this guy's not long for the world. The New York Times reported today that there were several bombings or explosions near Mariupol, Ukrainian Mariupol is occupied by the Russians. And what was interesting is the explosions took place in areas outside of the range of Ukrainian HIMARS, the HIMARS rocket systems that we've given to Ukraine. So the question then becomes, what is Ukraine using to hit these territories if supposedly they don't have weapons that can go that far? Or do they? And we don't know. We officially, publicly don't know about it, right? Very interesting. Hungarian prime minister threatened to veto a renewal of European sanctions against Russia. Spain announced it will give 6 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, and they should be arriving in March or April. My dog is playing in the background. I can hear her. Yep. What a surprise. Okay, for you guys, I can show you guys. There we go. You guys can't see. She's behind me, squeaking behind me. Actually, maybe, can I get a little, oh, there you go. She was behind me squeaking and just looking at me. She does that to try to guilt me into playing. It's like, burp, 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 burp. And then she sits there, it's in her mouth, just looking. The TikTokers got the view before she moved. That was very cute. Oh, you'll get your water in a second. Just wait. She wants me to bring her more water, and she's doing the, she talks to me. It's very funny, but not in a way. She bosses me around. I'm bullied by my own dog. Poland is going to send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine in the next few weeks. Italy is going to send 2 other air defense systems in addition to the air defense system it promised to Ukraine. That's good. Russia carried out an intercontinental ballistic missile test while Biden was in Ukraine, and it looks like the test failed. Oops. That's not really showing up Biden very much. Russian deputy foreign minister, I think it is, said today that Russia pulling out of the New START nuclear treaty, not really pulling out, they're kind of suspending it, does not raise the risk of nuclear war. And finally, Sky News reported that some hackers put a fake air raid on radios in 10 Russian cities in order to scare the Russians. So that was kind of freaky. That's it for today. One thing I always forgot to mention is I have a store as well that we sell t-shirts, Ukrainian themed. And again, the proceeds from the store, half the proceeds I channel back into Ukraine. The other half helps me do my work. Thank you. Is it DLB? DLB Quip is from Ukraine. Привіт. From what it says, Привіт z Ukrainy. Well, Привіt z Washington. Good to meet you. He's saying hello, or she's saying hello from Ukraine. Italy's prepared to give tornadoes. I did not. Yeah, Italy backed off. I think Italy backed off a little today on the fighter jets. Either today or yesterday, Italy backed off again. So everyone's. I know Spain, Britain backed off again today on the fighters, and Italy backed off yesterday. So not so good. Any case, guys, let's call it quits. I'm going to skip Discord tonight just because we've been going long, guys. So I need a break. I need to get some dinner. Tomorrow we'll be back. Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. Saturday morning, remember 10 a.m. we will do our coffee talk on TikTok, which is for the paid subscribers on TikTok. You know who you are. Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, US. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. So join me then. Thanks for joining us, guys, tonight. Thank you for the gifts. You guys were particularly generous tonight. I know that, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you, moderators, for stopping the crazies, because they're crazy. No, chocolate cake. I can't have it. I've got my physical tomorrow. I can't eat my chocolate cake for dinner. I would, trust me, in a flash, I would eat it. But with my physical tomorrow, I am insisting I am not going to let my cholesterol spike artificially before my physical, because I always do that. And I'm not going to do it. So I want to know my real cholesterol tomorrow. So I'm going to have some soup, I think, which I'm not happy about because I want chocolate. That's okay. I'm going to put it in the fridge. I'll have it tomorrow. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you all tomorrow. And thank you. I have oatmeal. I know I do have oatmeal. Wait, there we go. You guys this is for the YouTubers now. Yeah. There you go. There we go. The YouTubers were able to see her this time. That was perfect. Oh, there she is. What are you doing? I'm having a command perform. Okay. Now you couldn't hear that because I was talking. Now I got the behind me. She growled at me to come play. All right, guys. I will talk to you tomorrow. I'll see you. Thanks, guys. Good night. That was the perfect end. Oh, thank you, Kanowski, for that.